Viewer discretion is advised.
They speak fluent reo and went to, kohanga and stuff, and they're saying like they don't feel really Maori.
Mandate.
Welcome to Mandate, where we navigate fresh perspectives and nothing is off the table. Tonight's guest hails all the way from windy Wellington, Wainuamata, and Lower Hutt City. Yes, Lower Hutt City. He's also an amazing talent who burst onto the scene in 2018 at the Raw Comedy Quest. And since then, he's gone from strength to strength. He's also been invited to several international comedy festivals. Also did his very first solo tour, the Crowd tour in 2020. And so he's also, in terms of tickets being sold, it's within two hours. But also in Auckland, his shows were sold within 20 minutes. So he's also been on shows like Celebrity Treasure Island, also on the Comedy Central, and also has his own show called Bouncers, which he has written, directed, and also stars in. Please put your hands together for the extremely talented Joe Daymond.
Holy hell. What an intro. Bro, I appreciate that, Pete. God damn. What a
Oh, man.
I feel like I'm about to go fight. And my undies. But I appreciate that, man. That's
Did you want to correct them on any of that, or?
No, you killed it, bro. Damn. Nah, that's a lot of effort to memorize all that, bro. I really appreciate that.
Bro, man. Hey, what's really impressive is your portfolio, bro. It's from a short span, in terms of time frame, Joe. Just what you've done and what you've accomplished, bro. It's just crazy. But I just want to ask, before we kind of dive into the real corridor, just because people think, okay, man, Joe's done these amazing things, but I don't realize the grind and the hard work, and also the humble beginnings. And so, if you can just kind of give us a little bit about the humble beginnings before making it in terms of what you're doing right now.
Yeah, damn. I've had a pretty crazy upbringing that's really sort of lent itself to, I guess, the position I've gotten into now. Like, I was really lucky. My parents they both work in IT. My dad being Maori and my mum being Fijian, and the typical sort of Fijian Maori career path of going into IT. We hear that all the time, mate. So we hear that all the time. It's Fijians either play on the wing or they go work in IT. So that was my mum and my dad, and so I was really lucky. I got to travel a lot when I was a kid, and so grew up overseas in Asia. Moved back when I was about 11, and a really, really crazy thing for me to experience was my old man. Well, neither of my parents were, had tertiary education, so they really had to work themselves, pretty much from the bottom up. The reason I sort of even learned how to operate in a corporate environment and go through to, really engage in boardrooms and stuff, because my dad would have to take me to work with him, and both my parents were working full time as I was growing up, so. My brothers and I were right in the middle of it with them, and would watch our old man just absolutely just work himself to death. And I think when you're able to experience that firsthand with your parents and go through that with them, it's something that is still etched in my memory to this day. And so for me, that's a massive experience that I still sort of pay homage to now. And so I really have to credit my mum and dad for sort of taking my brothers and I on that journey. And that's really where that all comes from, that drive and I guess the beginnings of what has become, this crazy thing that is my career, I guess. So, yeah, it's been really insane.
Man, that's crazy, man. That's crazy. Because it's funny because I know you did it, financial and property development and so forth. So I'm wondering, how did they cross from that to comedy?
It was it was obviously you couldn't get any different of a career path, but my parents fell into the typical thing for Maori and Pacifica in this country, especially of their generation of they came up with the mindset of you've got to assimilate with Pākehā if you really want to succeed in a Pākehā world, and especially back when they were sort of coming up, which is late 90s, early 2000s, that means us as Pacifica and Māori people, we have to pretty much get rid of everything that's really organic within our identity and that's really true to us if we want to succeed in this world. And it's even little things like, you've got to turn up on time if you want to be successful. Little things like that where we hear it and we're like, oh, okay, that must mean that if I'm not great with time management, then I can't be successful. Whereas I've sort of come up on the other end of like, nah, I can turn up late to shit and be just as valuable as somebody that turns up on time. And for me, being able to see my parents have to go through that experience of really intense assimilation and stripping back all their identity in order to succeed, which included, doing shit like IT and working corporate and, dressing up and, corporate clothes and doing all the whole dance and everything. That kind of realization was what I took through with my own personal experience when it came to starting in property development and finance. And then realizing that I was living a life that was so far from like who I really am as a person, but I was just following along that path that we all as brown people get told, day in, day out, like this is what you have to do in order to be successful. And I think I just went through a moment where I was like, nah, like I don't have to do any of that shit. Yeah. It's not me. It's not our people. And so now I'm going to go do something that is not only really organic to me and my people, but it makes me happy. And what do our people do? We don't like thrive working in offices and, sitting on spreadsheets and shit. We like thrive sitting around and talking out of our asses. Like, that's what we're good at. And for so long we get told like there's no way that's valuable. Yeah. And for me, I was like, nah, there's value in that, and I'm gonna go find what that value is. And that's pretty much been, what's encompassed my whole career is finding that value and the skills that we have as Maori and Pacifica people. So,
man.
Sorry, boys, I fucking came out quick with the TED Talk.
No, that's cool, man. That's cool.
Because it shows the transition and sort of what drives you. And like, I'm just wondering, like, when did you become self-aware around this whole cultural difference? And like, how did it make you feel when you reflect on it? Like what your parents had to go through and seeing them having to assimilate, and then like some of the revelations or convictions you were getting,
like for me, it was really my personal experiences that then sort of led me to kind of not only delve into like what those meant and what those represented to me, but then also what I'd sort of seen with my mum and dad. Like, for example, a really big eye opener for me was like I'd been working for this company for a long time, and like I'd really put in a lot of hours for them, and I had worked as an intern full time for them for a year, so like not getting paid, and so still working on the side so that I can afford to intern for them, and was doing a lot of work and stuff. And there was this job going, and I said to the company directors, I was like, hey, like this job I feel like I've provided all the skill set that it's required. You guys know me, like we built up a great relationship. They're like, yeah. No, we'll take you on. And so I was kind of bugging them for like a contract and stuff for ages, because like they said like, yeah, no, we'll bring you on. And then how I found out that I didn't get the job was that a family friend of theirs had come into the company, and he was working something else. And the reason I know this is because he was telling me, he was like, yeah, no, like I wasn't really happy with what I was doing, so they just brought me on. And I was like, oh, what are you going to do? And he's like, he told me he was coming on to do the job that I was wanting to do.
Yeah.
And for me, it was a really big realization. Like, you know what? It doesn't matter how much I do. At the end of the day, I'm going to be beaten up by something that I can't control. And for me, that was a massive realization of I've done so many things for these people and for this sort of career path that should warrant, like, I feel like I've deserved like getting something back from it, and it just didn't come. And so that was that massive thing for me of like, well, I can keep knocking on the door forever, like I watched my old man and my old lady do. I could keep knocking on the door forever, or I can just decide, nah, I'm worth something somewhere, and in this place it may not be much, but I know there's value for me somewhere, so I'm going to go find that rather than sit around and wait for them to wake up to it, because they may never not.
Jeez.
Yeah. So that was a massive one for me.
Jeez.
Yeah. And it's really hard because, you know, property and finance, like you hear that and that's flash. Like it sounds mean. Like you tell your mates, like, what are you up to? Like, oh, property and finance. You know, had a ducky and like, you know, and it sounds really flash. And like as my parents, like they were really proud that that was a career I was pursuing. It sounds really, you know, it ticks all the boxes for, you know, an islander mother who moved over here in her teens and a Maori father who grew up poor. Like it ticks all the boxes of like, no, we did right by our kids, by like getting them into good schools and teaching them how to succeed. Like our boys doing it, and so it was a massive revelation for me to be like, nah, like this ain't it, and there's better places for us. And yeah, like I said, my commitment for the next part of my life was like, fuck it, I'm gonna go find it.
Jeez.
That's cool.
Yeah.
That's cool.
And you know, in your navigation of finding what was the next thing, how did you know it was, you know, oh man, it's comedy? Or was it, you know, because a lot of us grew up with all our family and they're all having laughs and go, oh, you should be a comedian. But no, it's not made for everyone, or is it?
Yeah.
And how did you know it was for you?
You know what? It was a massive. Because first of all, what I did was like I had this massive revelation, and then I was like, I'm gonna make a list of all the things I want to try, and I'm gonna commit to trying them over the next like month. And it was random shit. It was like stand-up comedy was one of them, but there was like interior design, coaching rugby, like heaps of random stuff. And so I just said like I'm gonna try all of these things. But a massive one for me was, probably the biggest privilege of my life. Not only was living overseas when I was younger, but was being around really successful people. Because when you live in an expat community overseas, like my parents, like they had no money when we were overseas, like we weren't rich at all. But because you're all from different places, you all just kind of get together. Yeah. So we had a really good family friend who was, no shit, a billionaire. And so here's like my mum and dad from Lower Hutt, and like our closest family friend's like a billionaire. And my dad is like, you know, typical Maori dad. Like this guy's like, oh yeah, no, I'll pay for everyone's dinner. And he's like, no, yeah, we could go halves. I'm like, cussy, this guy could buy the restaurant. You need to put the lobster on Afterpay. Like, just let him buy the shit, bro. And a massive experience for me was being around people like that, because what he really showed me, because he would tell me crazy shit about himself. Like this one time he goes to me, because he's British, he's like, hey mate, you know, guess how old I was when I read my first book? And I was like, how old, Dice? His name's Dice. He goes, 21. First book. Didn't read his first book till 21. And yeah, and he's a billionaire. And like this guy was like the coolest, most charismatic crack up dude. I'd ask him like, bro, like what are you actually good at? Like I'd ask him as a kid, I was like, what do you do? And he's like, oh, just kind of hang out with people and just build relationships. And he would always say manage relationships, and I would always be to my mum like, what the fuck does that mean? What is that? But I learned that like those soft skills on that scale, like those are the most important ones. And you know what's crazy is that as islanders and as Maori, those are like that's the shit that we're best at. But it's so funny because the area when it comes to like any sort of like working sort of industry, as they value like hard skills at the place that we're allowed into, which is, you know, the general working environment. You know, they value like, you know, technical skills. And islanders, like, we're not naturally like super inclined to understand technical shit really, really well. It's not natural for us. But what is natural for us, it's crazy, is because what's natural for us is the skills that are valued at the tier above that working environment, which is managing people, which is being able to walk in a room and everyone feels like they know you, which is being able to make a room crack up at like a dime. Like that's what our people are good at. And that's all this dude was good at. He would tell me all the time, he's like, bro, I'm fucking not good at anything. But I can make people like me just like that. And I was like, dang, that's me and all my cousins too. Fuck. We can't even get a job at fucking Countdown. So the biggest privilege of my life was being around people like that and being able to see that as a young kid. And so that really informed like sort of this next stage where I was like, you know, I never finished my degree. I don't know my way around like, you know, softwares and shit like that, but I can make a room of people really feel like they know me, and that's valuable somewhere. And this old fucking British dude in India, Dice, he taught me that. So, yeah.
Man, that's an amazing story, bro. Because you telling us like your parents knew this millionaire, close family friend.
Yeah.
And you talk to him as a kid, and you get this advice, hey, just make friends, build relationships. And you're absolutely right. Would you agree, brothers, in terms of who we are as a people, as Polynesians and Maori? You know, we are, in terms of the soft skills, we have this kind of emotional intelligence.
We've got it so like naturally.
And so, but yet some of us are, no, that's not the way we've been taught. Like you're saying, we've been taught, no, this is the way, this is how it should be. But you just put it on its head. Like, man, this is not how it is. And you're living proof that no, this is one way, but I'm actually being successful doing this in another avenue.
Totally. Like I run a company and we've got staff and I'm not even just saying this to say it. I'm literally the least qualified person. I know the least. Like everyone else has way more skills than me. You know, they all went to uni. Like they know all this shit that I like couldn't even start to know. But there's one thing that I do have, and our people do have naturally, is like, yeah, there's those exact skills. And so that's where I found my value that I brought. And, you know, for so long it was undervalued, you know, and paths that didn't really suit like me authentically. And the only real challenge was just finding like what that one is that I can just tie myself to. And it's crazy. The moment I found it, it clicked from the beginning, and it just hasn't stopped clicking ever since, really.
Oh,
that's cool.
Yeah.
That's so interesting. It sort of makes me think about, and perhaps I'm sort of tapping into more a personal angle, but in terms of that, you know, being told to assimilate, you know, to sort of the Pākehā lifestyle, and you know, if you want to succeed, that's the way to go. Being able to like then sort of pivot and embrace, you know, that organic culture within you and sort of that ancestral route. Sometimes it can leave you in a weird middle ground.
It totally
like,
does.
You feel like you don't fit in either way, and then Did you ever sort of go through that in terms of making that shift?
Oh, for sure, and I still feel it now. But that middle ground is really funny. That in between, and exactly like what you said, like to give like a really specific example, like that middle ground in between, I guess like the Pākehā world and then like our world. It's really funny that middle ground feels really lonely when you're trying to navigate it. But then you talk to all our people, and it's like we're all actually in it. You know, we're all in this middle space, and it's only sort of in General Assembly when everyone's around that we're made to feel like that we're the only one in it. But when you actually really talk to people, we're all like, yeah, well, I mean, I have so many of these conversations. It's like, you know, I don't feel like a real Fijian or a real Maori. I don't speak. You know, I haven't been since I was like a little kid, and like these are such relatable conversations on a broader scope. And like I've got mates that they speak fluent reo and went to, you know, kohanga and stuff, and they're saying like they don't feel really Māori. And it's not until we have these convos that we actually discover that about each other, and you realize that we're all in this middle ground, and it's actually coming to the understanding that, well, none of us are a monolith. Like we've been made to believe that there's only one acceptable version of us. That's what we've been told for so long. Whereas we all talk to each other and we're like, nah, like we're all so different. And we're comfortable with that. The only time we feel like that's not accepted is when we go out there. But then we talk to each other and we're like, nah, fuck, I feel exactly the same, bro. I feel the fucking same.
Bro, that's deep, man. Because it is, you know, we always hear that word's kind of thrown out every time here, Joe and brothers. Diversity. But you're right, because you think of diversity, we're all diverse in terms of being within our cultures.
Totally.
Yeah, we're all different. People say, diverse, this is the way it is in terms of Polynesian culture or Maori culture or Pākehā culture. but you look deep within. We're all different in our own
So
unique ways. So how did you manage all of that? Being in, like you're saying, being in the middle. How did you manage to say, okay, this is who I am. This is my identity. So I'm just gonna keep going this way.
But mine was really hard because for a long time I didn't feel like I really belonged anywhere, and it's a really, really, really common experience. Like my Maori family, my dad's side, a lot of them are like tuturues, like they speak reo and like grew up around it. Like there's this some te Aotearoa in Te Whanganuatara in Wellington. Te Aotearoa are based around Waifatu Marae in a suburb called Waifatu in Lower Hutt, and everyone literally lives around the marae, and so they're really entrenched like in the culture and stuff, and that's my that's the Māori side of my family. But we grew up in Wainui, like quite far from them, and so like we never really felt like we fit in with even just our own family, let alone Māoridom in general. And then when it came to being Fijian, like having grown up overseas and having sort of had the experiences I had, I think even like amongst Fijians, they were always kind of like, oh, what's this guy's buzz like? What's his accent up to? Like, and so even amongst Fijians, like it was really hard to sort of find a really comfortable sort of zone in the Fijian community. And then to Pākehā, where I probably felt the most similar to Pākehā because I'd had a lot of these experiences going overseas, and I was really lucky to go to private school. But to them, I'm just another brown dude down the street, like we all are to a lot of them. And so that was a really hard realization for me as well. And so I always felt sort of stuck in this middle ground. And I think for me, I actually thought it was a weakness for ages. It was like if I can't figure out how to be like representative of Māori or Fijian, and I definitely can't figure out how to be representative of Pākehā unless I start playing golf and and manage to move it to Ponsonby, even if it's just in a rubbish bin, like at least I can hang around. If I don't figure out a way to do that, like how am I ever going to feel like I belonged? But it wasn't until I really started to put myself out there and having this experience, exactly what I said before, that other people are like, no, we feel the same. And then I guess for me, my next mission as both a Fijian and a Māori man is redefining like what those mean in a lot of people's eyes. Because I think for a lot of people, they've had a really set idea of like what a Fijian is or what a Māori is. And I think I'm really committed to just coming in and being like, nah, I bet you've never seen or heard a dude like me. And I'm just as Fijian and Māori as they come. So,
love that. Yeah, on another interview I heard you talk about being half Fijian, half Māori, and the tension that came, that came with that. But then you talked about, nah, I'm full Māori and full Fijian.
Yeah.
Can you sort of unpack that a bit?
For
Because
sure.
I thought that was powerful.
Yeah, for sure. It was it was that authenticity thing again. Like. Yeah, for so long, I guess I had fallen into that trap of like, am I worthy of calling myself like either of these things? Am I half this? I'm half this, half that. Don't know a whole bunch about like, tikanga. I don't know a whole bunch about Fijian culture. But I think for me, like I realized that it doesn't fucking matter what I know. Like it's with me and it's been with me.
It's who you are.
It's a thing I was given at birth and was blessed to be given. And, as Kiwis in general, it's a really difficult culture to be really certain on anything, like we're a culture that breeds, if somebody's like really certain on something and they're like, they're stamping their foot down, everyone's the natural inclination for a lot of people is like, oh shit, what's this dude up to? And one thing I realized was that, I think there's one thing that is of no question is that being able to claim your culture. Like no one can actually take that away from you.
Yeah.
Regardless of what their view of that is. And so for me, I just started as considering myself full both, because I am full both. And it doesn't come with the, you know, the T's and C's of like, oh, you know, I'm Maori, but I don't really know real. But I'm like, I'm learning, even though I'm not. Oh, no, I don't really know like Fijian, but I'm you know, I'm training.
I'm running.
I started running the hills, which I'm not. And so really coming to terms with that and really being okay with like, nah, I can, I'm the Fijian and Maori that a lot of these people are gonna, the first one that a lot of these people are gonna see. And so I'm happy to be, you know, whatever I bring them, that can be a representative of where I'm from, because that's me.
That's so cool.
That's awesome.
Oh, that just adding on to that, because that's what you said. You said being half Fijian, half Maori doesn't dilute who I am as a Fijian Maori. Like, I'm fully Fijian, I'm fully Maori.
Totally.
And that's powerful.
Totally.
So, yeah.
Yeah. I don't know fucking Tika Tonu, but you know, I'm gonna learn it.
And I bet you whoever's viewing you and like cheering you on, it's like, man, he's from my tribe, or like he's Fijian, he's Maori, you know, everyone's ripping. So yeah, shout also. Sorry, bro.
No, you're all good. And I was curious, you know, sometimes being in the middle lane, it's really easy to like downplay your skill, even if it'll happen historically throughout your life, where like when you finally land on it, you'll reflect and be like, damn, this was always where I was meant to be.
Yeah.
And I was curious about you being in that lane, and like, you know, I'm sure there would have been times where you kind of had to downplay aspects of yourself in order to fit in, because fitting in was way more comfortable than being quirky and authentically yourself. So I was curious about some of those experiences, but also in terms of maybe, did you have a soundboard, someone who you were just able to fire your craziest thoughts to, and they were like, yeah, no, you're crazy, or like, nah, you're onto something?
On the soundboard thing, you know what my big soundboard was genuinely, it was my podcast. It was because I'm really hard on myself, as like, which I think is a really Islander thing. You know, the voices of our family just they stick in our heads for life. And so for me, a podcast was, because like, and I think this probably comes to my view on mental health as well. I think a massive issue with men's mental health, in particular in New Zealand, is I think we have a huge problem around expression. And a lot of men never learn how to express themselves in any form, let alone the hardest form of expression, which is when you're vulnerable. You know, one thing that I kind of like always sort of use as an example is with rugby culture, and especially for like us brown men, it's always, you know, like all of us have had that white dude come up to us like, hey, you play rugby, mate?
What position you in?
Hey, what position are you, mate? I'm like, all right, Darren. Hooker. But it's that, you know, we're given less chances to really have an identity. Men in particular, I think Aotearoa has really carved out a certain view, and not only do we all feel held accountable to that, but we hold each other accountable to it as well, which is such a tough thing to navigate. And so, you know, like I can even think on like a micro level, I could be sitting around with a bunch of my boys, and well, we could all be talking about something super trivial, like, what do you guys feel like for dinner? And I can say something like, you know, a little bit like out the gate, like, oh, fuck, I feel like La Pochetta. You already know what the reaction is. My name is La Pochetta for the next 5 years. Up to La Pochetta. changed my name to La Porchetta in the group chat. Started sending me Italian memes and shit. All I was saying, felt like some, macaroni and cheese and some fucking lasagna, and now I've got a whole new identity. Now I've got to go learn Italian. It's on like such a micro level like that we feel sort of hindered on like being able to express ourselves. And so if you feel sort of hooked if you feel sort of trapped in even just a small level like that, how the hell are you going to feel like you can do it on something massive, which is maybe like the first time in your life you felt sad, or the first time in your life you've realized that, you're maybe not going in a direction of your life that you're going in. Like, if you can't even say what you feel like for dinner, how do you even have those conversations? And so for me, my podcast was the first time that I was uninhibitedly just saying what the fuck was on my head, because I wasn't surrounded by all these people. I was literally just in a room on my own, and I wasn't like worried about like, oh shit, I wonder like what the boys think of this, or nah, I won't say that. Nah, I was just like, oh fuck it, like I'm gonna talk about the movies that I feel like watching, because when I'm around my mates, they're gonna make fun of me if I bring this up. So I'm gonna talk about that. I'm gonna talk about this random ass like German TV show that I like watched. I was just talking about like stuff that I was real into, and it was the first time I'd ever done it in my life. And then the big lesson for that for me was that I had a massive like itching to express myself, and this was the first time I actually really did it authentically, the first time ever in my life. And so my podcast was actually a massive sort of game changer for me, was because not only did I realize it was this massive problem that I'd had, which I didn't even realize that I had, but it was the first time that I was able to, relieve it and really understand it within myself.
Yeah, I love that. That's powerful, man. But some of the examples you talked about, like, that's so true.
Yeah, like have you guys ever felt that? Yeah,
and it's well, I'm probably on the other end as well, giving it like without even.
We all do it to each other,
and it's almost part of our culture, and
it is.
How do we change that?
It is. Like, I remember the most intimidating thing was sitting around, and like the most intimidating thing for brown people, what's that? Sitting around and the Yui Boom's playing. Who picks the next song? Scariest thing for an Islander. Scariest thing for a Maori.
Don't play what you really want to play. Play what you think everyone wants to.
Oh yeah, true. Because you're sitting there, you're like, oh, fuck, they're playing Tennessee whiskey, but I want to play Venga Boys. Shit, they're playing Catch Fire, but I fucking want to play Kylie Minogue, to be honest. But
Jason Donovan.
Yeah, like that's and it's those are the things that we never think about have that lasting effect on us, but they do. They do. And to think that those little, it's never, people always talk about it, it's never one big thing, it's a lot of really small things. And for me, I realized that within myself. It's like, it's these thousands of small things through my life that have sort of led me to feeling like trapped like this. And yeah, like I said, that podcast was the first time I was like, nah, I like all this shit, and I'm sitting in the room talking on my own, so I'm not scared to say it. And, at the start, like, no one was listening, so I wasn't scared to say anything. And then it just kind of took on a life of its own. And then, but yeah, that was really the first one for me.
Oh man, good on you. Because you're right. Because, and I guess we could all agree, Usos. Because it's just those small things that you were saying, the small things we talk about, and we laugh, and we laugh with them, or we kind of joke about ourselves, and just to take the focus away from us, or from some of the things that we've done.
Totally.
And so we just mock ourselves, but we and not realizing that it hurts. And we always we laugh.
Hurts every time.
Yeah, it hurts. We laugh with them at people's expenses, and like, oh my gosh, and then we realize, oh wait a minute, that really hurts, and we laugh. But really, just
yeah. Want to cry every time.
But it's crazy. It's crazy that we do that to ourselves. And you bring a good point, because some of those thoughts or some of those memories are still embedded in us for ages.
Still there.
For ages, and we wonder why. Like, oh man, I wonder how come this person so and so is not doing good, or so and so is in this kind of rut. But we do it to ourselves, and I'm guilty of it as well. Like Charles was saying,
I'm guilty of it too.
Guilty.
We all
I'm so guilty of
We
it.
mock each
Forgive
other.
you. I forgive you.
Yeah, we do. We mock each other, not knowing the emotional damage. You know, we laugh at that kind of stuff.
Totally.
So you're right, man. It's just crazy that we can't undo some of those things that we've done
Yeah.
in the past. But it's about doing, what do we do now in terms of the younger generation, our the younger men, or even our boys, our young boys, and just in terms of kind of changing that kind of way of thinking and instilling some positivity versus the negative.
And I think my like, and this is completely my opinion, like my solution has always been like really encouraging that expression. And it sounds real cliche, but like I noticed with me, because I would partake in that just as much as anybody else. But then I realized the more and more I put myself out there and put myself in really vulnerable positions, the less I was inclined to do that, because like I started to realize what it felt to like really put my feelings out there. Because you know, if you're somebody that you never ever put your feelings out there and you're never ever vulnerable, you never ever get to feel like how hard that is. So you kind of go around and you know, it's so easy to just make other people feel that way because you don't actually know the impact of that.
Yeah.
But for me, it was once I started really opening it up to myself, I was like, oh shit, that's a really, really difficult thing. And so it was even little things like when that would happen, like around, I would always, regardless of whether I agreed with them or not, I would always support the person that was getting like hammered on. Whereas, you know, back in the day, I was making fun of them too. So, but it was little things like that. Yeah. Once I really put myself out there and was willing to be vulnerable and really like commit to expressing myself, it changed my life. And I think the really crazy thing for us as Islanders and Maori is we're so expressive. We're so expressive. And like we have so much to say. Like, you know, all you have to do is just watch a dance battle at a high school in South Auckland and they're all going ham.
Yeah.
And like we have so much to offer and so much to give, but it's the first thing that we take away from each other.
Wow.
And so I think once I realized that I had that in me, I lost that inclination to take it away from others.
Jeez, that's cool, man.
Man, because, you know, another thing to it in terms of like our men and our people wanting to sort of express themselves, it's hard. So they project their insecurities on others.
Completely.
And so instead of them like being vulnerable or getting to that spot where they have to be, they'll just either support someone else or they'll be the one to like either gap it or
Mock themselves.
mock themselves.
So it
Yeah.
makes twice as hard to get the attention off you, kind of
Yeah.
thing.
Hard out.
Yeah, 'cause
Hard
that's,
out.
I know that's
Yeah,
something
bro.
I've done in the past where I'm like, they strike a sensitive, like a bee, you know, you get stung, you know not to go there.
Oh.
So you just throw it back, like you go nuclear almost straight away
Oh, completely.
just to keep them off you in future. But I think there's a fear there that, you know, you'll get mocked, but it'll linger for a long, and you'll only ever be known as that guy that said that one thing that one time years and years ago.
Totally.
So good.
So good, man. Joe, and what you're saying, Joe, that's quite profound because you're saying, dude, you don't give a stuff what people think about you now. You're saying, hey, it's because I'm expressing myself, it's quite liberating. You know, it's liberating. You say, hey, and so because you're quite vulnerable, this is who I am. You feel free to be yourself.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and so when people are mocking, it's like it's just like a water of a duck's back.
Yeah.
And so, but it's hard. It is hard. And then so I'm thinking,
So difficult.
in terms of your comedy, stand-up comedy, and when you're up there talking, it's like, man, I'm expressing myself because you know people. You've heard the saying, laughter is the best medicine. And so when you're up there doing those jokes and telling those jokes, it's like, hey, this is my time to just express myself fully, and there's a lot of truth in that.
For sure. Yeah, and comedy in itself inherently is so, you know, that's the most vulnerable thing because you're going up there and you're hoping to make people laugh. And there's something like so difficult about that. Like it's almost like you're opening people up to you know, like you're basically opening them up to yourself and being like, hey, do you like me? Like that's what it feels like as a comedian. And I think for me, the most powerful thing I ever could have done for my comedy was start going to therapy. Because for me, like what it did was it taught me all those things of really loving myself and being okay with what I'm putting forward, regardless of whether people are taking it or not. Because it wasn't just expression; it was therapy as well. I should make that clear. Those were two massive things for me, and so the reason it was the best thing to ever happen to me when it came to my comedy is because I lost that that whole thing that comedians really carry with themselves is like, I need the audience on my side. And because when I first started out, my comedy was really different from my real speaking voice. So you have a comedic voice and then you have a speaking voice. My comedy voice really early on was really different. And it was like I would come on and I'd be really arrogant, and I would do it because I thought it was funny. Like for example, when I first started, I used to walk on stage and be like, "Fuck, it's real hard being handsome, mate." Because one of the big things is, and I'll do this joke where I'd be like, a lot of comedians talk about that they don't really have much sex, and that's really unrelatable for me because I fuck heaps, and I have a lot of sex. I have so much sex. Anyways, that was my comedy earlier because it was so far removed from who I am as a person. So when it came to the whole sort of function of being a comedian and being funny, I was throwing that out, but I wasn't actually giving a real version of myself. So if it didn't land, I could just be like, "Oh, it's a persona." It's not really me. And with getting older and expressing myself more and being more vulnerable and going to therapy, my voice moved to where my comedic voice now is. It's just my real voice. And so to be honest, I'm not really that funny on stage at the moment. I just kind of just go up there and just fucking talk. But it's it was such a massive revelation for me because it was just no, I know I'm a funny person, so I'm not going to try to come up here and be funny. I know me as a person is funny, so I'm just going to be me. And just like in any conversation, I'm not doing it for laughs. I'm just doing it to talk, and every now and then there's a laugh. So I'm just going to do that rather than try and continuously try to pull them out of different places that aren't me. And so, yeah, that was my whole journey with comedy.
That's
Sorry,
crazy.
Sorry, also, just if you can and if you want, what led you to therapy?
The first, to be honest, both times, because I definitely had two sort of stages with therapy, but both times, for lack of a better word, they were forced upon me. So I can't take credit for being really assertive and take it on. I was just as avoidant as I'm sure a lot of men are. And I think the word that is associated quite often with things like therapy and with reaching out is pride. But for me, it was shame. And that's kind of a word that I associate closer to that feeling when it comes to reaching out. I think for me, I would often think about how much my parents did for me. And that was the one for me where I was like, they've done so much for me and they sacrificed so much for me and my brothers. I can't believe that I still need this shit. I would think about that all the time. And then what had to change was my attitude towards her of no, they sacrificed a lot for me to be happy with me. And they can only control so much. If I'm not happy with me, that's not their responsibility. That's mine. And so that was when my relationship with it changed. And so after the second time that I was kind of pushed into it, because pretty much my ex forced me into going to therapy. That was my relationship with it changed over the course of that sort of second stage of me going, and now I have a really good relationship with it. It's just kind of something that's, I guess, just a part of this whole journey that I'm on of just trying to be as true to myself as possible, and really the biggest one is learning how to love myself. And learning how to, because I really take pride in really looking after people and especially people that have looked after me, and I'm a really loyal person and always really pay attention to be really respectful. And I realized that I would do that so much for everyone else and never for myself. And And so that's what therapy has been awesome for with me, was realizing that, well, you want to do it for others. You can't do it to the level that you want to do it if you're not doing it for yourself. So the second I came to that realization, it made me a better person. And for me, it's because I want to be a better person for the people around me. But that's been the thing that's really motivated me to take control of it myself. And it's been awesome, man. Like I've never been happier in my life, like with myself. And it's not tied to my professional life. It's not tied to like anything sort of exterior. It's tied to like right in here. And it's and I've never felt better for it.
It's good, man. It's good, man. Well said.
Yeah, that leads me to this next question, because I've been asking it with our last few guests in this terms of like because we got quite a lot of high profile guests that come on, and they're always interested in like, okay, you do this thing that you love, and then you got your name for it, or this is giving you like a high profile. But who is Joe if comedy was to end next week?
I'm fully devoted to empowering people that in many ways haven't been empowered. And comedy is just a vehicle that I do that in, now, and television. But if that all disappears tomorrow, I'll find another vehicle to do that. Like the biggest satisfaction I get from my career is really being able to give opportunity to others, because like I know how it felt for so long. Even like that property development example, like I worked my fucking ass off for them, and for ages, like I remember I would walk home and just kind of be like, man, like will someone just give me a chance? Like surely I'm doing something like that someone can see and just be like, yo, bro, like I see you,
Yeah.
and I want to give you this. Go run for the hills with it. And for ages, I dreamt of that person coming. And to be honest, they never came for me. But what I realized was that, no, I was dreaming of a version of myself that I wanted to be. And that's like the pride that I take in when it comes to not only like what I do, but like who I am as a man. And that's what I'll do for the rest of my life, whether it's because I won't do comedy and like TV shit forever. Like I'll probably go do some other random shit, like, and I'm not talking like in my 50s, like probably like pretty soon, like in my 30s and stuff. Like, I just want to do as much stuff in my life as possible, because we ain't here forever, and so I'll do a lot of different shit, but it'll always have that through line of finding and giving opportunity to others, and really just galvanizing voices that for a long time haven't been heard. Yeah.
Cool, man.
And I was going to ask about sort of, now that you've mentioned some of those things that, looking to do different things in the future, is there much thought that goes into that, or are you sort of like enjoying the present and like just soaking it all in while you're in it?
Yeah, pretty much. Not too much thought, really. Like we've got a general manager at West Park, so he basically runs the company, and even he was like, all right, so we like need to have a planning session. So like, what are you doing October, November, December? And I was like, fuck knows. Well, I don't know. But I told him, I was like, I don't know, but it'll be something. It'll be busy. Like, and he's like, oh, okay, is there heaps of stuff in the pipeline? I was like, no. But I think for me, the moment I realized there was power in what I want, like what I want, it isn't just a dream for me. It's like, if I want something, I can go get it. So I don't really sweat like, needing to plan things or needing to know every single thing, because where my mentality just got to, through this whole journey of self-realization was like, yeah, if I want something, I'll get to it. And so it's really in the hands of the universe when that comes. But what I can control, like I'm going to take care of that. So I'm not going to sweat anything really. And
That's cool.
If I wake up tomorrow and interior design is genuinely like a massive passion of mine. if I wake up tomorrow and I decide like I want to just do interior design, like fuck comedy and stuff, like I genuinely will.
Love that.
So that's just kind of how I'm like leading my life, really, and yeah, it's
That's cool.
a crack up.
That's cool because we've had guests that have come on here, real successful. They have these 5-year plans and have told us their way of doing things and go, oh, you got to have a plan. Wake up. This is what I got to do strategically. And then we just had someone recently just talk about I don't plan. I just wake up, and if I feel like I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it.
Yeah.
And just hearing you, this is adding to it. So we've got all these different successful people, but just being happy and like really finding their drive and purpose. And I love that because not everyone's the same.
Yeah.
So someone might be sitting, that listening in and thinking, oh man, I need a 5-year plan, but we don't know how to plan, or our brain or our being don't tick like that. But seeing someone probably listening after this podcast, hearing you and go, oh shucks, I want to wake up. I think I'm going to be the best driver.
And then just go do it. Because my relationship with it changed, because I used to be a big planner.
Okay.
But I'm the most spontaneous dude you'll ever meet. Like if you told me like, yo, do you want to go to fucking Rotorua tomorrow? I'm like, yo, all right. And so when I really understood that, yeah.
You want to go to Rotorua?
Fire the bus up, Chad. Fire it up, brother.
Let's get tonight. Let's get to
I realized, because for me, like I would plan stuff, and I always had like a 6-month goal, year goal, 1 year, 5 years. If someone asked me like what my plan of action was, like I knew that. But I'm such a spontaneous person, and I'm such like a people driven person. Like I'll have a plan, but if somebody comes to me and like I really love their vision and I love their drive, it doesn't matter how much like I feel set on my path. If I'm with somebody and I like what they're telling me, I'm like, fuck it, let's do that. And so because of that, like I think for so long I had been told, in order to be really successful, you've got to like have these things lined up. So I think I forced myself to be that person. And I think when I came to terms with the fact that I'm not that person and I'm just going to live my life professionally how I want to live it personally, it was the best thing that ever happened to my professional career. And like I even think of it on like a micro level. People, it even like adds to the demand of you as a person, because people will kind of just be like, oh yeah, have you like seen this opportunity? Like, are you gunning for it? And I'm like, no, not really. If it comes, it comes. If it doesn't, it doesn't. And to them, it sounds like, oh shit, this guy's got like heaps he's got heaps on his plate. He's got heaps in the bank. And I'm just like, nah, I'm just really leading life like by my heart. And honestly, since I started doing it, it just my life has never felt more organic and more natural and just cruisy. Really, like. I work my ass off, but my life is really easy. And I think really achieving that for myself and seeing how I got there, I really want to make sure people understand that is actually something you can do. It doesn't have to be this massive like grind and every day's hard and every day you wake up and you're like, oh, fuck this, I gotta get like, that doesn't have to be normal. You literally can just live a life where every day you just do what you want. And it's literally what I do. I just do what I want every day.
I like that.
That's cool, man. I was curious about comedy these days. Seems like it's so high stakes. Like counterculture is at its peak.
Sure.
People can get offended at anything you say. Does it ever sort of play on your mind in terms of as you're going about this journey of sort of being authentic and in the industry that you're in? Does it ever play on your mind at all?
I mean, it definitely does. Like, no one, even just then, talking about like, just cruise your life, it's easy. No one wants to be disliked, really. No one wants to be hated. And so I think ultimately that's the biggest fear with cancel culture is not only just the fear of being hated, but the fear that you've been misunderstood. And so I think with me, like, why the approach with my comedy, like more just leading with my personal voice, is because if I'm speaking to something that's like true to me, then if it's misunderstood, then I'm probably more likely to be okay with that than if I was trying to lead from like a comedic voice and I like kind of fucked up, you know, like what I was trying to say. Whereas it would be so much easier if I'm just talking, and if people don't get it, I have so much to sort of lean back on because I'm just speaking from my own self, my own experiences. And so that's kind of how I navigate that whole environment, because it is really like, it is fucking like pretty like jarring and hostile, like when it comes to being a comedian in this day and age. Like people like pull you up on the smallest shit. But because I just speak from like myself, even if I do get pulled up, and I get pulled up fucking all the time, I always know like have an experience to speak to and something to like pull back from. So yeah, that's kind of how I navigate it, which is ironic because a few of the things I've said on here might be my last thing I ever do. So
Right, that's funny, man. Because what you're doing, Joe, because some people are watching this and think, hey man, you're breaking the mold. You know, this is how it should be done. This is
Thanks, brother.
goals and all that kind of stuff, and you know, you need to have these planning, 5-year planning and so forth. But you know, it's what's really interesting. You're saying, hey, you know, and you're just proving to people out there, or men out there in general, that it doesn't have to be this way. You know, this is it may not work for you, or work for someone else, but this is how it's worked for you and pan out for you. And for you to say cruisy, because you think cruisy, success, those two words kind of meet together. Like, how does that work? But for you, it works. It works. And what I'm getting with you, Joe, is that you're confident. You're confident in who you are, but also you're confident in your ability in terms of, and your purpose, you know, regardless of if comedy stops today, like Charles was saying, if comedy stops today, I got another avenue. I can do something else. And it's not because of, okay, these are the things that I can do, but it's because of the purpose you have in terms of helping others and instilling in other people. And so, in saying all of that, how does it feel when you're like, in terms of planning and all that, how content are you in terms of just knowing when to be cruisy and not be cruisy?
I think like your kaupapa is the biggest thing, like what you're working on, because I think for me, I only ever do things that I really believe in, and I only do things that I really enjoy doing. And so when you lead with yourself like that, and this is the biggest power that we forget when we do stuff, and this is the most important thing to when it comes to building a career, it opens you up to like-minded people. The only good thing, and I'm not even just saying this as like a thing to like say, like the only real good thing I'm good at is like people. It's really like just, you know, like I love being around people. Love, like, I could just sit with randoms and just talk for hours. Like I really love it. And it's honestly the only thing I'm good at. And so when it comes to like doing projects and stuff, the reason I have like so much trust in myself and not feeling like I have to always have like the next thing going is because I always meet great people in like what I do, and it just sort of always lends itself to the next thing and the next thing and the next. And so that's really like where that I think contentness, I think being content, I think that those are really good words. Being content in myself and being content in where I'm going, I think that's where that comes from, is because for me, I'm just all about people, like above everything else. And as long as I'm meeting really good people that I align with, which is always going to happen because I do projects and stuff that I align with and that are very me, that's never ever going to stop, like ever. That's why I even say, like, if I just want to go do something else tomorrow, like I reckon I could get pretty successful in it pretty quick, just because I'll know like the people to meet that'll really unlock that for me. And it's really the only thing. And to bring it back to, I guess, what we were talking about at the start, like us as brown people, that's the thing we're best at, as people. And it's honestly, it's the only thing that I'm good at, but it's a really fucking good thing to be good at.
cool.
Jeez.
And I was curious about how, for a lot of people, like that might be exhausting, like meeting people.
Yeah.
And so I'm curious about what drains you then. If meeting people is gives you energy, what drains you, and how do you recharge?
Sex.
Oh, sorry.
Cheers for saying it for me. Wait, does that drain me or recharge? Yeah. Not the fast charger. It's the lightning charger.
The wireless
The old sickie.
Depending on who it is, cheers.
I think the best thing is that was absolutely what I was going to say too, Charles. So I'm so glad we're on the same boat. No, I'm glad we're on the same boat, brother. I'm glad we're paddling the same waka.
Same pedal.
Is there something you want to tell us, Abu?
Same pedal. Same pedal.
Since we're on camera, sex with the same person.
Oh, yeah. Hard.
yeah.
Yeah. Hard out.
Oh, shucks. We did this.
What was the question?
Same person.
What drains
On
you?
the same night, eh? Yeah. Nah, I ain't got it like that. My big one is I really lean into my hobbies. So I've had the same hobbies genuinely since I was 10 years old.
That's cool.
So I was really lucky to grow up. We spent a bit of time when we lived in Auckland and Northcote. And we lived in Northcote Point when I was like just before we moved overseas. So maybe when I was like 4 or 5, because we moved overseas when I was 5. So just before then. And we lived down the road from a movie theatre, and it's still there. It's called Bridgeway Cinema in Northcote Point. And my parents are crack up, man. Like, fuck, they made me and my brothers really independent really quickly. And so as a 5-year-old, they'd send me up the road to the movies. And this ain't the 70s, like that was the 90s. That was almost early 2000s. Like, they weren't doing that kind of shit anymore. Like, sending kids up to the pictures. So, it started off my old man would take me up to the movies, leave me in the cinema. He'd be able to go work for a couple hours because I just loved it as a kid. Like, I got so obsessed with the movies. And then when I started being able to spend a lot more time on my own, that was like the go-to thing for me, was just going to the movies. I'd catch the bus. Even when we moved back to Lower Hutt and I was like 12, 13, I'd catch the bus over to Queensgate, go catch just like a random movie. And I'd do it just about every day, like from intermediate age. And I've done that to this day still. So I don't know if anyone works at the movies, but I could probably bet that every single movie theatre, they have workers there that have probably seen me rock up like on my own, because I do it literally once a week. So really leaning into, like a genuine love and passion like that. And it's so simple.
Yeah.
It's such like an easy thing. And it's not tied to, like, obviously that's what I want to do professionally, but there's nothing like in it that I feel committed to. It's just like something I just rock up and just kind of do. So that's a massive one for me. And it's just something that I've, you'll find a lot of these things are things that we were really we were into when we were kids. And as an adult, we think we have to strip all that part of our identity away as we become like an adult. But for me, just leaning into the shit that I like doing as a kid, and my ex used to always say, like, unlocking your inner child is the quickest pathway to happiness. And that's what I always feel like when I go to the movies. So that's the big one for me, and it works every time.
Like that.
Yeah.
Man, that's cool.
Man, I'm really mindful for time also.
Cheers, brother.
But I was interested because everything that you've shared, it sounds, because we only got limited time, it sounds like that's a cool pathway. Oh, you have to go.
PM Dawn there, brother. The music, man.
But a PM Dawn, Don't worry, I got the juice, brother. But a PM Dawn.
It sounds like an easy pathway, but to get to where it doesn't sound easy, but I mean, we don't have a lot of time to really unpack what you actually went through. And so, like, was it easy to navigate to where you got now? And because you're really self-aware. You have all these reflections. You're confident now in who you are, but I'm sure it wasn't easy to get to where you were.
Hardest thing I've ever done. Hardest thing I've ever done. And it was not only hard for me, but it was hard for like the people around me. Like a really big one for me that I didn't talk about for years, but I talk about like quite openly now, is at the age of, how old was I? 2018. I was 22. I was homeless for half the year, just living out of my car. Because I'd picked like such a, sort of out the box career, and my relationship wasn't great with my parents. Not only just because of that, but I think because, just like what we all get like with families. Really putting yourself out there and really trying to explore your identity is such a difficult thing, not only just for you, but for everyone around you, because everyone around you always has a really set idea on who you are as a person. And so, especially us as brown people, man, like we're so communal, and everyone, everyone always takes pride in that they feel like they know you better than you know you.
Yeah.
But no one does. And that was a super difficult thing for me to come to terms with, and why I even found myself in that situation was because I'd already sort of put my family in this situation where we were already sort of moving apart, because I had made all these massive decisions to really try and live an authentic version of my life. And I got to the point where I didn't really feel like I could reach out to anybody when I really needed to. And it's so simple. Like I look back now and like the biggest solution for me not having to be in that circumstance was reaching out for help. But because of my circumstances, I'd kind of convinced myself that like, I'm already on the back foot with them. And I come to them with this. They're going to be like, well, we fucking told you, you fucking idiot. And that just rung on my head constantly. And so I was like, nah, like I've got to figure out how to get out of this. And so that's why I kind of like look back at it. It was like easily the most difficult part of my life. It's because, yeah, like I said, like that's not just a transition for yourself, but everyone around you. And it takes a long time for everyone to get it. And I actually talked to Dre about this. The hardest thing when you really want to get out there and do something different is for people to understand not only what you're doing, but why you're doing it. And they never get it, ever. And what I said to Dre was like, but just watch.
Yeah.
Because we'll be successful. And that's when everyone gets it.
Yeah.
That's when it's really easy for everyone to get it. And so that was like that really difficult time for me to get to the point I'm at now. And so I guess it's kind of sounds like a no-brainer as I say it, but for a long time, to a lot of people, including my family, I was the biggest idiot in New Zealand. There was no one crazier than me. But they get it now, so
Yeah. Wow. Hey, man, they get it, man. They get it now.
yeah. So
There's some true words, man. And you're right. I think when you go out on a limb and say, "Hey, this is what I'm going to do,"
yeah,
people are thinking, "What the heck is?" And they're second guessing you and everything. And
yeah,
you're getting the trolls. You're getting people saying, "Hey, you just come back,"
all that.
and you're waiting for the "Hey, I told you so." And you're right. Like I think Dre was saying, "Hey, Charles, hey, come on, TVNZ, give me a chance. Come on, man, come to the party." And you're probably right. It's going to pan out that way. He's going to be successful. And you, likewise, yourself, obviously in Comedy Central, and your co-writing, all that kind of stuff. People don't get it, but now because they see, oh, bro, I get it.
Yeah.
And you hear, oh, Joe, this Joe, and they all want a part of you now.
Exactly. And I've said, like, me and Dre have had these conversations so much, and I've said to him, like, everyone that doesn't get it is going to get it really quickly with you, bro. But the most important thing is that, like, he gets it. He understands what makes himself special. Like, he really does. And the thing I love about that dude is, like, not only does he know that, but he's really proud in talking about, like, he knows what he brings. And I fucking love being around people like that. And so that's the next part of the journey for him is because he's so sure of himself, being okay with people not being sure on him. And because just like everybody with him, they're going to be sure about it very soon. and people always are, you know, when you get to certain points, and so really not putting too much value into, you know, what their thoughts are, especially, you know, when they're not in favor of you, is because they're so easily changed, and they change just like that. It really makes you think like, oh, well, they didn't know until I told them, so maybe I was the one that, maybe I'm the most important person when it comes to knowing, because they didn't know until I told them. So we're both on that journey, and it's been so good, like, sharing it with that dude, and yeah, I watched that whole episode, and fuck, it was a good listen. So yeah,
He's the man. Props to
He's the man. He's the man.
Oh, that's so cool.
Oh man, I know there's people they get it now. They remember the financial and property developers. Hey, you guys get it now.
Oh, this
This
was a crazy full circle one. So I got asked to host Stephen Adams's charity dinner, and I just got off the plane. I literally had just got off the plane that day from shooting a TV show in Amsterdam, and I was at this charity dinner. I was with all these, like, you know, fucking rich white dudes, and guess who's there? Is my old property development boss. And I just got a
That's crazy.
and so I just kept making fun of him on stage and stuff. And he's laughing like, yeah, no, you got me, mate, you got me. And I was like, yeah, I bloody got you, bloody cheeky bastard, fuck you. But
That's me.
but that was a crazy, like, full circle kind of thing. Yeah,
bro, he would have been regretting it, man. Like,
I think that
bro.
was. It was so funny. Like, when we talked to each other, he couldn't really, like, say anything. Like he, like, literally, like, he was just like, mate, just, oh, mate.
What are you doing, Dasha?
And then, yeah, watch this. Then I started singing Confessions, and it was over. But yeah, that was a fucking crazy one. So yeah, that was that's so funny. I completely forgot about that part until just now. Yeah.
Awesome, man. How we doing? Oh,
yeah.
Oh man.
We gotta invite the also back.
Hey man, we need to have a
We
part
got
two,
part
man.
two.
We need to have a part two. Of this, obviously, there's a lot of things we haven't unpacked.
Yeah.
But bro, just kudos to you, man. Props to you.
Appreciate it, brother.
And I love it. I love the fact when you say, hey, they don't get it, but now they get it.
Yeah.
And the thing is, you stay true to yourself. You know, your whole, you know, you just kind of said, hey, this is what I'm going to do. You know, you could have easily self-doubt. Obviously, all that kind of stuff could have been in your head. But you followed through and you're doing it, bro. You're doing amazing work. Oh, man, mad love also. Mad love.
Really means a lot, brother.
Yeah, man, I'm just one massive fan. Like, you know, we're all just normal guys, but just firstly, just appreciate you saying, "If yeah, I want to be on Monday," and so having you come on and just hearing your story. And you sharing your heart to our people, and especially men out there. And I just love how you've navigated the space. A lot of us struggle trying to assimilate and have this tension of like, oh man, do I leave my culture at the door? Do I leave my Southsideness at the door? And do I have to be like these others? But you know, we're learning. We're in a time where we're ripe for change. Where this is our superpower. We can walk in this world, and we can also walk in this other world. And so hearing you, like, man, you're in a field that not many of our people are in there, and you're killing it. And so just
Thanks,
appreciate you, appreciate your time. Just want to honor you, give you your flowers while you're still young and doing it, and look out for a message. Okay, Oos, want to get rid of But yeah, appreciate it, Oos. Thanks heaps.
Appreciate it, brother. Thanks, man.
Bro, shot for I think what really stuck out to me was just you navigating that middle space. That just really resonated with me, just as a teacher who's trying to be the best version of myself that I know I can be, but sort of being confined to the way the structures that are, you know, historically been passed down. I just take a lot of courage from you being able to be organic and authentic and carving your own brand of success. So I just wanted to say big ups on that. And especially for not being, I always found that being in the middle lane, sometimes it's easy to get territorial, and like, you know, you'll come across gatekeepers and people that are like really territorial about their success, no matter what level. So I just wanted to say big ups to you for just being so open about it and being so willing to share your time with us, but also just with the people that you come into contact with. I can really tell that you're so genuine, and we're just so grateful. So thank you, so appreciate it.
Yeah, man. Also, hey, we just like every other guest, Joe. We always give them a gift, a bit of a caricature, and so, brother.
Oh my God!
This is for you, brother. It's for you, man. Appreciate it so much. This is our gift from the Mandate team to you. Thank you so much, bro. Thank you so much, bro. We really appreciate it. And so, is there anyone that you can think of that would be ideal to come on the podcast, Joe?
Yeah, like, oh damn, there's so many, but yeah, I can't thank you boys enough, man. Honestly, can't thank you enough. You know what? One of the biggest things for me, really coming up when it came to, you know how I talked about before, you know, really looking, I really felt like I needed that person to like really put their hand on my shoulder and tell me like, bro, it's all good. I think for me, I always thought it was going to be somebody like, you know, that knows me, that I know, that comes out, you know, and they're like with you. And I think what I really quickly learned is like, no, it doesn't have to be that. And very often it will find you, but it's people that are going to come from places that you probably haven't been, places that aren't close to you. And I know for me, you fellas like represent like that ideal, not only just for myself, but for a lot of our brothers, you know, who are really looking for that hand and like saying like, fuck, it's all good, bro. Like everything you're feeling right now is so normal. And I saw that from the moment I saw your guys' content. And for me, it's such an honor to be a part of it, because like I see the impact that it's having, and I know the impact it had on me as a young man, like having that to look to. So I really, yeah, I really can't thank you fellas enough for not only creating that space, but for even like inviting me to be a part of it, because it's really special, and I just really appreciate, you know, what you boys are doing, on top of even asking, you know, my fucking crazy ass to be here. But
So we appreciate it, man.
I think what one dude you absolutely need to talk to is you guys listen to New FM?
Yeah.
So you know Tim provides on New FM?
Timmy. Which are not the
So-
Pākehā Māori?
The Pākehā Māori fella. So Timmy's like he was a school teacher. I don't even really know if I'm allowed to say it, but fuck it. Timmy was a school teacher, and he started doing like online content, and he started doing like a podcast. Started doing his digital show, the Bakery Runs, which was real, yeah. And he was a teacher, and through, you know, really empowering himself and doing all of these things, like he's now on a mainstream radio station, New FM. He's on The Crowd Goes Wild, and just doing all these really amazing things. He does a lot of like mental health talks around the country, travels around a lot. And this dude just did that literally like from, like, no joke, I think it was from his garage. Like he was just making content from his garage. So he's got a fucking cool story, and he's got really, really amazing stuff to talk about. And I love that dude. Like I watched him work his way up to where he is now, and so his stories are a real cool one. And Reegs as well, who does obviously the Morning Shack with Timmy,
me
is another great one. So honestly, you can't go wrong with both of those boys. Like Reegs, he was I also don't know if I'm allowed to tell people about Reegs. They're real protective about like what they used to do before, and I'm like, fuck, who cares, boys? He was like something to do with like I was gonna say something to do with electricity. But yeah, he was just like working just a corporate job, and was just a boy from ourselves, and same thing, made content, and now he's, you know, does the show, He was part of the writers' room, 4 Bouncers.
Wow,
Yeah, like
that's cool.
yeah, these boys are like just completely self-empowered, doing like such cool shit, and yeah, I'll forever like tell their story because I think it's so cool for our people to see that like you know, we can do that shit,
Hard.
and it can get us to like crazy ass places.
Hard.
So yeah, those boys for sure.
Man,
Definitely reach out. It's cool,
Yeah, for sure, man, for sure. But any last words of encouragement for our viewers, for our men out there, Joe?
My biggest thing is just go do it, brothers. Like we all have those thoughts of like maybe I should try this, maybe I should do that, and that was my thought when I thought about stand-up comedy, and just doing it once, and I didn't think about the future, didn't think about like you know the possible career path. Just literally rocked up to an open mic and did it, and just doing it once changed my life. So that's all I would say, brothers, is yeah, if you have something that you feel like is closer to like who you are as a person and you're not doing that right now, go do it, because just doing it once, just giving it a go, you will suck at it, you're not going to be great, but I can guarantee that it'll spark something in you that'll change your life. So that's what I leave with the boys. And yeah, root heaps like me.
Well done, bro. Thank you for that last snippet of the bit. But hey, man, thank you so much. Also, thank you once again. And then, as usual, brothers, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment. And as usual, brothers, refine,
Unlock. Take
take
charge.
charge.
Mandate.